a couple of announcements, but before I do so, I know that I do have one apology from DP Newton Ramdale, who usually is here. He has another engagement, so he has extended his apologies. But I'd also asked DLG Willie if you have got any formal apologies for absence or lateness for today's meeting.
No, I don't, President, other than, of course, Treasurer Lewis is stationed in Grand Cayman at this time.
Right. Okay. All right. Duly noted. Okay. In terms of my opening remarks, I just want to share with the members some of the activities that's going on. Some of you, if you tune into our WhatsApp channel group, as well as on our Instagram and so forth, you'll be hearing some of the information. But if you're not aware, there are a lot of exciting things going on. First of all, last week, we were privileged to charter a new K-Kids Club. This is at the New Hope Preparatory School on February 27th, along with our co-sponsors, the Kingston College Key Club. And we had a charter ceremony, and it was very well attended by the school, other members of the New Hope Preparatory School. So we wish congratulations to President Amelia and her 23 members of our K-Kids Club. We're looking forward to a lot of exciting things from that club, and the kids themselves were very enthused and excited about their new club. And we, of course, will be giving them guidance and support in their K-Kids and their Kiwanis journey. Already they're thinking, to transition to eventually become Kiwanians themselves. So it's good to, as you can all appreciate, start from young, the principles of building community and giving back to society. Also, to advise our club members that come April 1st, we're going to be having a Kiwanian of the Quarter award, or we're going to be beginning evaluation for a Kiwanian of the Quarter. So the last 2 quarters of the administration, we're going to have a Kiwanian of the Quarter. The criteria will be shared later on, but it will include things like attendance at meetings, your participation in projects, and if you're also active in your interclubbing activities. So more on that anon, but April 1st, all of those who would like to get an award, we're building towards a Kiwanian of the Quarter award. Thirdly, just to share with you, some of you may be aware, we have engaged a social media coordinator, and Gabriel Burgess, who will be helping us to kind of achieve some of the things that I mentioned before. So we're going to be a lot more active on our social media as well as our PR to, one, increase the profile of the club. Secondly, to share projects that we're doing. We find that there are a lot of really good things that Kiwanis Club of Kingston are doing, but the members are not aware and the wider public is not aware. So we're going to share a lot of the projects. And thirdly, to attract like-minded individuals and to our club. And hopefully when people see the projects and what we're giving back to society, they will want to be part of the bigger picture and be part of Kiwanis Club of Kingston. So look forward to more of that kind of activity. Also, you would have seen that we launched our Terrific Kids project that is with the Builders Club, and this is under the tutelage of same Chairman VP Zurie. We have been to Tarrant Basic School and as well as Roehampton. Am I saying it right? What's the second
Richmond
school?
Park, Dynamis.
Richmond Park, not Roehampton. Richmond Park, yes.
Also at Michael, it was also at Michael.
Also Michael, correct?
Yeah,
Michael practice in Richmond.
Michael practice, yes, that's correct. So we have launched Terrific Kids in 3, and I think there's some more. So we'll hear more about that as we go along. So that's another project that we're doing that we're very excited about, and the children themselves are excited when we go to the launch. Their excitement is palatable. And so we're looking forward to lots more with the Terrific Kids. And we're thinking of trying to bring back the debating competition in some shape or form. So more on that as we go along. And finally, I'd like to share with you that we're going to be having a 3K fun run walk in July. So save the date. We now have a definitive date of Sunday, July 13th. The Kiwanis Club of Kingston is going to be having a 3K fun walk at Hope Gardens. The main purpose of the run walk is to raise funds for the Bustamante Children's Hospital. They're in desperate need of some medical equipment, and we're going to rise to the occasion and use this as our main fundraising activity to raise funds towards the school. So you'll hear more about it, but just for now, please pencil it into your diary or put it into your digital calendar. Sunday, July 13th, Kiwanis Club of Kingston, 3K, fun run for Bustamante Children's Hospital. So that's all that I have that I would like to share at this time. But we do have, as I see, people who are joining us, Kiwanians and guests. And I'm going to ask DP Stu, in the absence of Newton, to do the welcome and introduction to the Kiwanian clubs and visitors.
Thank you. Thank you, President Stephen.
Sure, no problem.
Are you here? Okay.
We're hearing you. We're hearing you, Stu.
Yeah, that confirms it. Fellow Kiwanians and guests, it is, I'm pinch hitting this evening for the welcome. And so I'd like to just invite, first of all, if there's any member, Kiwanian member from overseas, we usually allow you to go first if there is anyone. So let me open it to any members from overseas. Counting 1, 2, 3. I guess we don't have anybody from overseas tonight, at least yet. So let me go to Division 25. Do we have anybody from Division 25? Okay. Moving on to Division 24. Do we have anyone from Division 24? Okay, getting closer. Division 23, let's start with West.
Good evening. Good evening. Yes,
okay.
we do have from Division 23 West. Good evening, fellow Kiwanians and guests. This is DLG Pauline from the Kiwanis Club of South St. Catherine, joining you this evening. At this time, we have 9 members from our club who are with you, and we're looking forward to the information that will be provided. Thanks so much for this opportunity.
Yeah, most welcome. And we are very happy that you have been able to join us. Thanks for coming. Okay, anybody else from Division 23 West?
Yes, good evening, DP Stu.
Okay.
President Stephen and fellow Kiwanians. This is P.E. Wayne joining from the Kiwanis Club of Kingston. I'm also on with my President Henry. Thanking you for the invitation. I'm looking forward to an interesting meeting. Good evening.
Thank you. Thank you for coming. Thank you for coming. Anybody else from Division 23 West?
Well, good evening, everyone. Hello.
Go ahead. I'm hearing you.
DP Audrey from the Kiwanis Club of Sunshine City, Portmore. It seems I'm the only one on just now, but I am far, far away, so I'm going to try to get the others to join as quickly as possible. Very interesting topic, and we can't miss it. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for coming. Okay, anybody else from Division 23 West?
Good evening. I'm Past Director Annette from the Kiwanis Club of Greater Portmore. I don't know if any other member is on, but I'm alone right now. Hope to enjoy your meeting.
Okay. Thank you for coming. You said past president, right?
Past director.
Past director, Annette. Okay.
Yes.
Thanks for joining us this evening. We're happy to have you.
You're
Anybody else from Division 23 West? Okay, let's go to Division 23 East.
Yes,
Anybody
good night. This is President Henry from the Kiwanis Club of Portmore, Division 23 West. Presently, I'm alone, but I know my members will be joining shortly. Thanks for your invite. Looking forward to hearing from your speaker.
Okay, thanks, President Henry. Glad to have you. And if there's anybody else in Division 23 West that you missed on the first go around, you're still welcome to introduce your delegation. But let's move on to Division 23 East. Anybody else? Anybody from Division 23 East? Yes, go ahead.
I won't be with you. I've been with you since 7, but I have to leave you because I joined, well, shortly because I joined my meeting. But just to say, there are 5 of us on at the moment. I know I saw Camille Wellesley, Stephanie Martin Dockery, Tanner Ricketts Room, Bridget Osang, and that's DS Bridget. And I'm DLG Gerslin. Have an enjoyable fun meeting, but if you realize we're having a joint meeting today at 7:30, so.
Okay. Well, thanks anyway, DLG Gershwin. Glad to have you, even if it's gonna be up for a portion of the time, but you're always welcome, as you know.
Hi, President. Thank you.
Okay. Anybody else from Division 23 East? No other club from Division 23 East? All right. Let's go to Division 23 Central.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Director Nakisha. I'm from the Kiwanis Club of Nation Builders Kingston, and I am the only one on at the moment. I'm hoping for more persons to come on. It's a pleasure being at your meetings.
Thank you. Thank you, Nakisha. I missed out on what your title was. Remind me.
Director Nakisha.
Director. Okay. Thanks for coming. You're always welcome. Anybody else from Division 23 Central?
Good evening. I am Jay with Director Jay with 23 Central Surrey Online. And at present, we have 3 members. And on behalf of our President Eurydice, she sends her greetings. And we appreciate the invitation this evening and look forward to a great meeting. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jay. Happy to have you. I think it's the first time I am. Well, it may not be the first time you're coming on, but the first time I guess you're speaking. If I'm correct on that. But welcome, and glad to have you.
Thank you.
Okay, who else from Division 23 Central? Anybody else? '23 Central. Okay. Any SLPs with us this evening? Any faculty advisors? Well, okay, if that is it, remember you're always welcome to join us whenever we're having our meetings, and that's Tuesdays at 7 p.m. And President Stephen, I think that's it. So back to you.
Thank you, DP Stu. Thanks for pinch hitting. I think you captured most of it. And just to add that if there's anybody who joins afterwards, please put it in the chat so we can at least recognize you. We try to make these meetings, even though we're virtual, as interactive as possible. So we welcome your comments and your emotives in the chat as we go along. All right. As we normally do, we also recognize birthdays and anniversaries for our Kiwanians at this time. And we do have 2 birthdays this week. In fact, today, both birthdays are today, March 4th. So past district trustee, Ralston Nunez, happy birthday, Rollo. It's his birthday tonight. Today, rather. I suspect I don't see him online, so he might be out celebrating. As well as Kiwanian Garth Wright, both also shares a birthday with PDT Ralston. So happy birthday to both of them, and best wishes. Like I always say, every day is a blessing, so we should cherish it because nothing in life is guaranteed. But we also like to take the opportunity, if there's anybody else who's celebrating a birthday online with us, would you like to share your birthday or special occasion at this time? Kiwanians or guests, now is your chance. If not, I wish everybody all the best. I also would like to take the opportunity of mentioning a couple of special Kiwanians who are joining us. I see DP Paul all the way from Japan. Welcome, DP Paul. Glad to have you with us. And DP Richard, welcome back. I'm wishing you all the best. Glad to see you online with us. And also, I see you, Dr. President Eurydice from Central Surrey Online. Welcome to you all. Hope I've captured everybody. And if I didn't mention your name, please don't feel slighted in one bit. I'm just making a rough look at the persons online and those that we are recognizing. So at this time, we do have, and I think I saw immediate past Lieutenant Governor Desmond, who is going to share with us Kiwanis education. So I'm going to hand over the microphone to IPLG Desmond to share with us some Kiwanis education at this time. Over to you, Desmond.
Thank you, President Stephen. Good evening, fellow Kiwanians, SLP members and guests. Topic is really the effectiveness of the chairman, committee chairman. But first of all, the chairman, who is a leader, one of the club leaders, is appointed by the president. But to be an effective chairman, would have to, like, a couple of things. One, I'd say, identify the skill set of members and motivate them to make a measurable impact. Two, know what projects create pride in membership. Three, ensure that members have fun in executing projects. Four, have an idea of the impact a project will have on the community. Six, speak with the outgoing chairman as he or she is a great resource person. Seven, make your club's president designate. That's meet with your club's president designate to establish specific goals and expectations for your committee. Next, become familiar with the bylaws, policies, and procedures. Next, select your committee members based on their characteristics to build an effective team. Next, schedule a meeting of your committee before the start of the new year and prepare a budget to capture what you intend to work on and try and get approval. And the approval of your membership and approval of your board. Next, develop a communication plan for the year to show how you will inform your membership of the progress of your projects. To share club updates with Kiwanis divisions and promote the club's events in your local community. Next, I would say, determine if the outgoing committee has unfinished goals or commitments that your incoming committee is expected to complete. Next, develop an action plan on committee goals. Develop the art of delegating responsibilities and do not try to complete tasks by yourselves. And I'd like to underline that. Learn to delegate. This allows for the development of your team members into leaders. Practice good conflict management, as there will always be disagreements with working in groups. How they are resolved depend on your personality trait, and the importance, the experience rather, of leadership style of a chairman. So the personality traits of your group members, the chairman will have to be familiar with those and how to manage them. Next, plan and conduct regular meetings, as committee meetings and activities. Manage your committee's budget. Monitor progress towards your committee's goals and submit monthly reports to the president, the secretary, and if you have bulletin, to your bulletin editor. Ensure that you attend club board meetings and be prepared to report on the committee plans and achievements. And finally, always, and I know the president made mention of this a while ago as far as recognition, always recognize achievements of members and committees and express thanks on behalf of the clubs. And that's it, President Stephen, for Kiwanis Education.
Thank you, IPLG Desmond, and very timely because I keep stressing both for Kiwanis Club of Kingston and by extension most clubs, the core of the club has to do with the committee meetings, and a lot of what you shared, I'm hoping that the respective chairman will embrace and build it into their programs, because yes, we meet as a club every week, but if the committees meet on a more regular basis, that's where we'll get the fellowship, and that's where we'll get the camaraderie. And I think all of those elements that you mentioned in your Kiwanis education are important parts towards that goal. So thank you for that, and I hope that people learn from that information shared. Okay, so with the conclusion of Kiwanis education, we're going to go into our main event. And I'm going to ask DP Stu to introduce somebody, our guest speaker, but it's our internal guest speaker, and share a little bit about what this evening's presentation will be about. I had indicated to DP Stu that, given my apologies earlier, that I may have to leave earlier. I'm going to be here for most of VP Zurie's presentation, but I may have to leave by about 8 or 8:15. So I won't be here for the latter part of the meeting, but I will, as usual, tune in to the parts that I missed on the Kiwanis Club of Kingston YouTube channel, because all of our presentations and all of our meetings are captured there. So you others like myself can tune in to hear the full length and breadth of all the meetings at that time. So on that note, I'm going to pass over to DP Stu to introduce our guest speaker.
Thank you, President Stephen. And another word of thanks to IPLG on those really insightful comments about the role of the chairman. Okay, this evening it is my pleasure. I don't often do the introductions, but I think I just decided I would do this one. And this person is a relatively, well, we keep saying relatively new because we have so many people from 10, 20, 30 years ago. So anybody under 5 years is relatively new. Anyway, VP Zurie Johnson is our guest speaker this evening. And I just want to tell you a little bit about him, because I'm sure some of what I'm going to tell you, you probably didn't know, other than the fact that he's a member of our club. So let's go. Zurie Orlando Johnson. That's the first thing I didn't know. I didn't know he was also named Orlando. Obtained his first Bachelor of Arts degree in Media and Communication from the Caribbean Institute of Media and Communication at the University of the West Indies, Mona. Zurie graduated with first-class honors and was honored to be class valedictorian. His second degree was Bachelor of Laws, LLB honors, University of the West Indies, Mona. He completed his professional training at the Norman Manley Law School, Kingston, Jamaica in 2019, and thereafter was admitted to practice in December 2019. His practice areas include, but are not limited to, probate, conveyancing, commercial, and employment law. A humble superachiever in a humble superachiever. In 2009, Zurie was awarded the Prime Minister's Youth Award for Excellence in Academics. In 2011, he was a member of the Jamaica Youth Ambassadors Program, where he served as chef de mission for agriculture. He describes volunteerism as being a part of his DNA and tries to serve his community through various outreach initiatives. He credits this passion to his involvement in the United Church in Jamaica and the Cayman Islands. He is from the remote community of Thickets in St. Anne and strongly believes that every opportunity of growth he is afforded is an example to the youngsters of that community, that their only limitations are the ones they place on themselves. And it's not only an example for the youngsters of that community, but to everybody else who knows him and has been able to benefit from being around him. I'll just add a thing that, Zurie is one of those who doesn't, some people wait to be asked to do things. Zurie is not one of those. If he sees something that he thinks he can make a contribution in, he'll volunteer. And, he has all the attributes that make him an excellent Kiwanian. So at this point, I'd like you to join me in putting your hands together, and giving Zurie a welcome. He's gonna tell us, the topic is kind of, is a bit strange, but let's hear what he has to tell us about it. Zurie, over to you.
Thank you, DP Stu. Good evening, Kiwanians. Good evening, guests. Good evening, everyone present. So I was sitting down and listening to people going on and saying, oh, they are excited to be here and that they're interested in the meeting. And I was wondering to myself, people are interested to listen to a dead topic. Well, so I'll see how best I can put life into this dead issue, right? And if you don't get it, I'm punning on the dead here. All right, so in our discussions about this evening's presentation and where to start, DP Stu asked me to look at living will and to see if there is any overlap. So I'm going to start there before I go into the main, I'll say, part of the presentation. So I'll start with living will. All right, so what is a living will? So it is a legal document that entails an individual's desire for his or her future medical treatment in circumstances in which they are no longer able to express or give informed consent. The document basically spells out what medical procedures you want to be used or not to keep you alive. So for those persons who are fans of medical drama, such as Grey's Anatomy or The Resident, or any of the other ones, you might be familiar with the term DNR, do not resuscitate. And you would realize that in those series, once that is on someone's form or their medical history, the doctors, once they get into a certain state, the doctors leave them alone or they allow them to transition, right? Because if it is that they do not do that, then there might be serious implications based on the legal nature of this document. We do not have anything in Jamaica akin to a living will. So at present, there is no provision in our jurisdiction, there is no provision in our laws for anything like a living will. So it is not applicable, and as such, that's why I will not really spend any more time on it because we don't have it here. I know I have very informed Kiwanians who might be saying, well, that will soon change because late last year, or Senate approved a motion for, let me get the name right, let me look for it, to formulate the Elder Care and Protection Act. So they're going to be looking at what a part of what that act should entail is living wills, as well as power of attorneys that go on beyond that will assist. And based on the name of it, it suggests that it will be for the elderly, but we look forward to what those discussions will entail and how that act will be formulated and what that act will look at. But currently, there is nothing in place that you can use to say, this is what I wish if this should happen. So yeah, unfortunately, guys, we don't yet have living will. So that takes me to, now that I have that out of the way, that takes me to my presentation for this evening. First, I'll provide a brief cultural context as to where this topic is coming from and what really it is about. Secondly, I will identify some of the rights. And finally, I will explore breaches of these rights and any possible recourse that might exist to you. Right? Or to the dead, if there is any. Let's go. In Jamaica, the death of our loved ones is very personal to us, and we treat funerals. Funerals are a big deal. The death of our loved ones, very big deal in Jamaica. That's why oftentimes we don't use terms like the person is dead. We use euphemisms. We go, they have transitioned, or they've moved on, or they're gone to sleep. And now we use terms like the Thanksgiving service for the life of, and it's no longer really a funeral. And many of us have moved away from wearing black. I know you're going to funerals and you're hearing people keep asking or keep saying to you, wear cheerful colors. So it's as though we somehow have not come to terms, or it's harder for us to come to terms with the idea or the fact that the person is dead. They've moved on. They are no longer with us. And we spend so much on the funerals because those also now become very important in how we celebrate the life of our loved ones, and we make sure they have the best in transitioning. So now the glass caskets and the hummers and the marching bands, and so you've seen it. So you know, you have an idea of what I'm talking about. I'm trying to be very conscious of my speed because I tend to speak very quickly. So I'm trying to be very conscious of that. So if you see me kind of pulling myself back a bit, don't worry about it. I'm just trying to tell myself, pace yourself so that everybody can hear and understand. Right? So there is an aspect of all of this that oftentimes we do not pay attention to. And you know what that is? That is what this presentation is about this evening. It's about the rights and obligations that are applicable to the human remains. So there are rights and obligations that are applicable to the dead. And we're going to be looking at that this evening. I don't know. It is not a topic that is very often explored or discussed. And so for some of you who are on this evening, it might be the very first time that you are being forced to engage in I'm going to call it a conversation, because the hope is that this will spark some interest and that you will have further discussions about it. So I'm going to call it a conversation. So this might be the very first time that some of you are exposed to a conversation of this nature. And I'm going to start with international human rights law. And international human rights law requires that the remains of those who die during armed conflict be properly managed and that their dignity is protected. So during armed conflicts, time must be allowed for there to be searches and for the collection of the bodies of the dead. There should be an allowance for there to be evacuation of the dead. So this stems from customary international law and provisions in the Geneva Convention, which speak to the fact that the dead must be protected and respected during international or non-international armed conflict. So you might be thinking, well, we are not as involved in armed conflict. We don't have that, so why mention that? So how does that affect you? But think about it. If it is that there are provisions for the treatment of the dead when it comes to situations like that, because in wars, people are at odds. I mean, think about the time to stop, to consider, to allow you to carry your dead away, to ensure that all the dead is accounted for. At war, what we're thinking of is victory. And the more of you that go down, then is the closer we are to victory. So if such provisions exist, then there must be provisions for instances where there is no conflict. And yes, simply put, international human rights extend these rights beyond conflicts, and it basically suggests that states can, in connection with the dead, be held responsible for interfering with rights such as, and here we go with the rights that are available, the right to life, the right to the protection of human dignity, the right to private and family life, the right to an effective remedy, and the prohibition against cruel, inhuman, or degrading treatment or punishment. So yes, the dead has the entitlement to those rights, and we're going to explore that some more. So where does Jamaica fall in all of this? Well, these rules and these provisions are contained in the American Convention on Human Rights, ACHR, of 1969. And guess who is a signatory to that convention? Well, if you guess Jamaica, you guessed right. In 1977, Jamaica signed on to the convention. But Jamaica went a step further, and on August 7th, 1978, Jamaica deposited the instrument of ratification. What this means is that Jamaica recognizes the competence of the ACHR. And in the instrument of ratification, it is stated that in accordance with Article 45, numeral 1 of the convention itself, the government of Jamaica recognizes the competence of the commission. So what that means is that the rights that are provided for under that convention to the dead is afforded to all Jamaicans who die because of the fact that we have ratified that treaty, right? And there is precedent in Jamaica, which is set where Jamaicans can bring actions against the state for breaches of provisions under that convention. So matters can be brought before the Inter-American Commission on Human Rights. And I'm going to give you an example of a matter that has been brought before, so we know that it has been done, so we know that it can happen. In 2019, Gareth Henry and Simone Caroline Edwards brought Jamaica before the commission, that's the Inter-American Commission on Human Rights, claiming that there are some laws in Jamaica that violates their human rights. They were successful in their bid, and they were awarded economic compensation. And several recommendations were made to Jamaica. So this evening, I'm not going to go into whether those recommendations were adopted by Jamaica. That is a whole other debate, because that now goes into the age-old back and forth of just how binding is international law and the sanctions under international law. But for the purposes of this information and what is important to this particular presentation this evening is that these rights are available under this convention, and that if these rights are breached, there is an avenue for citizens to bring an action. So if you have a grievance because you feel like any right that is provided for in the ACHR is breached, you can bring an action. So if you feel you are violated, you can bring an action. And I know that right now there are some questions because we're talking about the dead. So how is that action brought? I will allow you to think about that some more, and then we'll answer your thoughts, or we'll see if what you're thinking aligns with what is there a little further on, right? Maybe just about now, kind of. So let's look a little closer at some of the rights that were mentioned, and I'm hoping that you remembered some of them. And I know the first one that was mentioned is the right to life. And I know I was very curious, so I suspect that there are others who are just as curious, because my mother always told me, don't think that you are alone. Anything that you're going through, someone else is going through it too. So I am going to be of the view this evening that if I am curious about how the right to life applies here, that there must be at least one other person. How is the dead entitled to the right to life? The answer is quite simple. The right existed before the person died. And so the thinking behind this right to life is that because they had this right, there needs to be things put in place for effective investigations to be carried out when it is alleged that there is a violation of this right. So if it is that you have lost your life, and it is said, it is speculated that you have lost this right based on a violation, your right to life extends to the point that there need to be an investigation to ensure that no violation of that right actually happened to cause you to have lost your life, right? So hence we can say that's the reason that some states investigates instances where murder is alleged. So this right puts a legal obligation on the state to carry out effective investigations into acts committed prior to the questioned death. There is sort of an obligation created to know the truth about the circumstances that led to the loss of life. And this is, if for those persons who are interested and who might go to read the ACHR, you can go to Article 4 of the ACHR to see how it is that they frame this right to life and how it is that it is dealt with under the ACHR. And this same kind of thinking extends to the right to effective remedy and the prohibition against cruel, inhumane, or degrading treatment or punishment. The right existed before you transitioned, and so it creates an obligation sort of for an investigation to be carried out to ensure that these rights were not violated, resulting in the loss of your life. So now we get to another point that I found interesting, is that the rights of the dead, so the rights that are assigned to the dead, also extend to the family members of the deceased person. So this is the part that touches and concerns most of us, because almost, I'm not going to say everyone, but and if I did say everyone, I probably would be right. Almost everyone that's on the platform has been impacted by death in some way, shape, or form before. Either you've lost a loved one or you know of someone who has lost a loved one. So the right that is afforded to the dead, as we're going to call it, extends to family members, right? And it has been determined by courts all around the world that the suffering caused to family members by the post-mortem treatment of their relatives may reach the threshold of inhuman or degrading treatment. This is so when the suffering is adjudged to be different in nature from the distress or sorrow caused by the death itself. So we know that in losing a loved one, there is some amount of grieving. So yes, persons are going to grieve the loss. But the thinking is, if there is something that is done that aggravates it, that moves it further than just the regular grieving, then that might amount to a breach of the right. So anything that aggravates it, that amounts to a breach, and that right falls on relatives of the deceased. So the school of thought appears to be that the relatives may invoke the right to private and family life in circumstances where they are denied the possibility of visiting their relative's grave, whether the body was accidentally buried elsewhere, or if you have paid for a double vault, right? So your parents, one parent has transitioned and you decide that you want your parents to be buried together, so you're going to pay for a double vault because that is available to you, and you have buried one parent and you've been going there for years and you're grieving, and you go and you have conversations with that person in that spot, and now the other parent transitions and it's time to lay that parent to rest, and you go and you discover that the spot that you thought your mother was in or your father was in is empty, and nobody can tell you where it is that that family member is. And the thinking is that you can bring an action for a breach of your right to private and family life, right? Also, if it is that you cannot carry out the burial rites, so you can't open the casket on the day because there is a stench. So you are unable to have a funeral service. You're unable to send that family member home in the fashion that you had intended, in the great celebration that you wanted to and that you had envisioned. It also, the school of thought is that it also extends to you, right? These are real life scenarios, by the way. It's things that actually do happen. All right, so it is particularly important in Jamaica when we put this against the backdrop that, to my knowledge and based on readings I have done, there are currently no regulations for the funeral services industry in Jamaica. Yeah. And I'm going to share with you some of my research, right? So in an article, and the article is titled Regulations Being Drafted for Funeral Services Industry. It was written by Sharon Earl. The then minister, this was in 2015, the then Minister of Health, Dr. Fenton Ferguson, he was at an event, and at that event, he revealed that the drafting of regulations to govern the funeral service industry were far advanced. That was in 2015. In 2016, Health Minister Dr. Christopher Tufton indicated that there will be more regulations in the form of legislation to monitor the operations of funeral establishments and mortuaries. He was also speaking at an event. And then we jump to 2022. In 2022, Funeral Director Paul Patmore was calling for the government to establish the Public Health Funeral Establishment and Mortuary Operations Regulations. And this was in a Radio Jamaica news article that was titled, Government Urged to Implement Legislation Regulation Funeral Homes. This note that this was 6 years after Dr. Tufton indicated legislation was coming. In 2023, Mr. Calvin Lynn, who at that time, I don't know if he still is, at that time he was the president of the Jamaica Association of Certified Embalmers and Funeral Directors, was expressing frustration at the lack of promised regulations to govern the funeral industry. He was also talking in an RJR news article, and that article was titled, Funeral Directors Frustrated with Government's Failure to Implement Industry Regulations. And at that time, Mr. Lynn stated that he had 2 copies of draft regulations from 2014, amended in 2019, presented to him in 2020, and to date, this is 2023, nothing was done. So you see, we've gone all the way back to 2015 and we came all the way to 2023. I am not aware of anything being passed since, so I'm still of the view that there are no regulations. I did readings up to last year, 2024, and was finding nothing then. But you know, the world is dynamic and thing changes quickly. So if there's anyone on who is aware of any regulations coming in, you can let me know. But to my knowledge and to my reading,
haven't been established.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mark. So we still don't have any regulations. Why does all of this matter? It matters because the dignity of the deceased should be maintained at all times based on the rights that are vested in them. The dignity should be maintained at all times. Those who treat the deceased should ensure that their dignity is maintained, right? So at present, there is no statutory provisions. So what happens if there are to be breaches of the rights to the dead that are now extended to family members? So the family members may have an action in breach of contract or in negligence. So breach of contract might be a little bit more straightforward because usually it's based on the terms that are agreed. So we agree that these are the terms. We accept that these are your obligations. And if you breach any of the terms or your obligations, then based on what the contract says, this is what recourse I can take. So I will exercise whatever is available to me to bring an action for that breach, and with the expectation that I will be compensated for the loss that I have suffered as a result of your breach of the contract. Negligence, however, might not be as straightforward, and so I'll pay more attention to that in this evening's presentation. Because with negligence, there are a few things. There are a few things that you must establish. So you must establish that there is a duty. You must show that there is a breach of the duty, right? So when I said that there is a duty, that there's a duty owed to you, right? You show that there is a breach of the duty and that the breach has caused you to suffer harm or loss. So in this case, we're saying funeral homes owe customers and clients a duty of reasonable care in the care for and the preparation of your loved ones, their bodies, for burial or interment. If they fail to exercise this, then they are in breach. If the breach causes you to suffer emotional distress or financial loss, then you may take an action against the home for compensation, right? So I'm now going to try to tie this in a little bit closer to what the positioning in Jamaica and give you examples of how this has been dealt with in the Jamaica court system, right? So this aspect might sound a little legalese, but I'm going to ask you to just bear with me, and if you have any questions, there will be a section later for that where anything here can be clarified. But I do believe that you will understand and there won't be any need for any clarifications really, and I won't lose anyone, hopefully. All right, so this is the important part of the debate, because the huge question in all of this still is, who is the right really vested in? Because the dead cannot bring an action. And so there are those who are of the view that because it did not impact or it did not happen to you directly, then there is no right and no one has any standing to bring an action. But the existence of a duty to exercise a certain standard of care when dealing with the dead is based upon the notion that there is a quasi-property right in the body, which means that the living has some amount of right over the body as though it belongs to them, kind of, right? So this is still being debated, is still debatable all over. But the thinking is, once it became established that those responsible for burial of the dead also had rights in this regard, it resulted that the mortician was responsible for due care in exercising his skill. And the standard of care appears to be the same general standard imposed on others who hold themselves out to the public as proficient in certain areas. So what they're saying is, just like how you would hold a doctor responsible, or you hold a lawyer responsible, or a teacher, or any other professional, just as how you would hold them responsible, because there are certain standards that you expect that they will operate by, the same should be extended to funeral directors, to morticians, to persons who work with the dead, right? So we get in, as I see a question at IPLG, we get into that. It's going to be answered. So we're looking at, so because the teacher, the lawyer, the doctor, and all other professionals must exercise prudent care, the same should be expected of those who deal with the dead bodies. All right. So most of the authorities that exist now, most of the case law that exists around this area now is mostly persuasive in Jamaica because this is not a very developed area of the law in Jamaica. It's developing, but we're not quite there yet as we do not have much precedence or guidance in this area. But it is clear from matters that have already been heard before the court that there is some amount of a right in the body of the deceased, right? And Justice Sykes, as he then was, now Chief Justice, in a judgment in a case called Adassa Blair and others and Neville Blair against Browns and Son Funeral Parlour Limited, looked at that whole question and of where the right exists, right? So I'm going to read some of what he said in his judgment for you. So he says, the issue of who should have possession of body for the purpose of burial is not new. It has generated case law in England, Canada, Australia, the United States of America, and now Jamaica. This court does not purport to review every case on the subject, but only a sufficient number to indicate how the issue has been treated and to see what principles can be deduced from the decided cases. This court has not been able to find any written decisions on this area in Jamaica. It seems that all the jurisdictions referred to above are agreed that there is no property in a body. So no child or relative of the deceased has any greater claim to body than another child or relative. The jurisdictions tend to give pride of place to executors and the administrators of the deceased estate. So this is where the answer to your question lies, IPLG Desmond. Let me see if I could go back and read your question for everyone. Wait, I think I did something wrong there. All right, IPLG, if you could just share your question so everyone could hear.
Let me see what I said here. Is it the executor who can take action for breach of right? That's the question.
So that's the thinking. So the thinking is that the right vests in the executor or the administrator. So one of the things that we will look at a little bit later on when we're looking at how it is that you go about it, one of the things I'm going to say to you, so I won't say it now, but that's one of the things. But that when I get there, I'll indicate. So the true position is that the common law imposes an obligation on the living to dispose of the body in a dignified and safe way. This seems to also go to public policy, right? So the underlying idea seems to be one of public health and public safety. Executors and administrators are part of the natural group of persons to whom one would look to see who is going to perform that duty. The law comes to aid of anyone who wishes to perform that duty. So even though it vests in the administrator and executor, if it is that there is someone else who wishes to do it, you can, but you need to do it showing that either the executor or the administrator completely refuse to do what it is that they're supposed to do, or you're doing it with their permission. So from the case law, the accepted position is that the body of a deceased must be disposed of in a dignified way. And it says the law will come to aid of those who seek to do so. So it appears to me that the court is ready to accept that it's reasonably expected for executors and administrators to assume the role of disposing of the body of the deceased relative. And so if it is that there is any breach, then it must be that they can bring an action on behalf of the deceased. So therefore, this is what I'm going to say, and I'm going to mention it now. Persons who are bringing an action, if you plan to bring an action, you must first obtain a grant of probate or letters of administration in the person's estate. So that now will give you legal standing to bring the matter, right? So in closing, I will look at the Central Jamaican case of Vera Dallas, and this was brought by her attorney, Imelda Robinson, and it was against LP Martin Company Limited, trading as LP Martin Funeral Home. I'm a little disappointed in this case, I must say, and let me say why. Because it was settled on a default judgment, meaning that one side didn't really come to the fore and bring everything. So there was no court case where everything was ventilated and a written judgment would have been handed down so we could see. Because for me, this would have been interesting because it would help to shape jurisprudence and it would help to shape how it is that Jamaica treat with these matters going forward, right? So in this case, I'm going to refer to her as the claimant, Miss Dallas, brought the action against the funeral home for emotional distress. She claimed that due to the result of the mistreatment of the body of her deceased son, and the fact that she was sent pictures of his partially embalmed body, she suffered severe stress and psychological damage, as well as financial loss. Right? But why I mention this and where I'm going to close is even though you can bring an action for the emotional distress that's caused. So if it is that you see pictures of the mangled body, or if it is that the funeral home did not carry out the proper procedure so that there is a stench, the body is rotting, so you can't open the casket. If it is that they fail to do what it is that it's supposed to do and you suffer, then there is an action that you can bring. But the court looks at a thing that's called causation, and they have what is called a causation test. And what that is that they look at what happened and they try to determine if it was too remote or if it was foreseeable. So they look at whether the funeral home should have known that if they sent these pictures, it would have that kind of reaction, or they should know that if it is that you don't put, if you're operating a funeral home, then you need to have refrigerators that can hold all different size bodies so that you don't have the excuse that the body was too big and so you couldn't have a refrigeration space. So you had to leave it out on a table, causing the body to decompose sooner than it ought to, and there was a stench and they couldn't have a funeral. So it looks at whether these things were in the contemplation of the funeral home. These are things that you should have known. These are things that you could have done to prevent this person from suffering in this particular way. So they look at what they did, the result of it, and if it is that it had the potential to cause that impact. Right? So only things that are reasonably foreseeable you can recover for. And I'm going to just share with you the decision of the court and how they dealt with it when it came to Ms. Vera Dallas. So the court said that her emotional distress was threefold. So they said, one, it did not amount to post-traumatic stress disorder that she was claiming. So they said it didn't get to that level. And they said that there was some parts of it that was exaggerated by her, right? So so the portion attributable to the actions of the defendant, well, she exaggerated it. It was more than, right? And they said that she failed to mitigate because she examined the death certificate, which caused certain triggers and caused her to react in a particular way. And they also said that the medical report only related up to the time of August 9th, 2016, and so it didn't look at all the time that was being covered in the matter. And so in her case, she was only awarded a sum of $1 million. So I'm going to close by telling you this though. If it is that you are going to claim emotional distress is medical. And so you must provide a medical report from your doctor that speaks to your emotional distress. If I can be of no further assistance, I say these are my submissions. I think I'm within time, but I'm going to hand over to DP Stewart. Thank you all so much for listening. And I hope that there's at least one thing that will start some discussion with you and someone else.
Okay, thank you, VP Zurie. Quite detailed and to the point. But I would have thought that in Jamaica, there must have been a lot of cases where, well, I shouldn't say I would think so, but where the body, not that I've ever had that experience or seen it, but where, because they have so many funeral homes all over the place. You know, I'm thinking about the condition of the body, maybe the odor. You know, I would have thought that it would have happened a couple more times. Do you think that's happened and people didn't know that they could make a claim?
I think so. I think that's part of it. I think it has happened. People didn't know that they could make a claim, and then some people just probably don't think of the process and think of how it is that they're grieving. They probably don't want to rehash because I think that a case might keep bringing up emotions that they don't want to deal with. So I feel like that's what happened in some instances. It's ignorance, and it's a case where sometimes people just feel like it's better to keep it away because it prolongs the distress.
Grieving.
Yeah. Okay. There's a one hand up. It's Dr. Eurydice. You may go ahead.
Good evening. This is a very informed, wonderful presentation.
Good evening. Thank you.
It has come to, I have a question. I'm going to say something first, then I ask the question. It came to my attention some time ago. This mother explained to me the death of her son. He was killed violently, and then she went to the funeral home and all of that. And I understand that a thing there now in Jamaica is you purchase one casket or coffin, whatever, and they give you a smaller one on the day of the funeral. So what they did was desecrate the corpse by cutting off
God.
yes, and still stuck it on the top of in the roof of the casket. And she called the police and all that, and it seemed to me that the information is not passed on. Like the police doesn't know that this is a wrong, because the police, all they said to her was, well, everything is here now and so forth. So just continue on with the funeral. So your presentation showed me that, there is a lot of loophole there, because all of these, these pop-up, let me call them pop-up funeral homes, the people seem to be untrained, uninformed on everything, and these things result in it. So who are the police aware that this is a wrong? This is maybe a criminal act, or has it risen to the level of a criminal act of desecrating the corpse?
Well, the truth is, I don't know if it's criminal yet, but there's definitely a negligence claim that she could have brought. But when it comes to the police and their training, this might sound away, but the truth is there are many of our officers who are not as informed in the law because the law itself, it's not as intense. They don't go into it as much. And so there is no ongoing training for many of them. And so many of these provisions that are there, they are not aware of.
Sorry, go ahead.
Yes, I'm sorry, please.
Were you finished, Zurie?
Yeah, the truth is, it might not amount to criminal yet because of the fact that there is no statute or regulation. So the truth is, there's no breach of any statute or regulation.
Well, I certainly there's something because even now it has been over 20 years and she still trembles and cries whenever she talks of it. And so I know that emotionally she does her best, as Jamaicans, we put one foot in front of the other and we keep going. But this has torn at something in her. It's unbelievable. And she just had to go on with the funeral and everything with the son's foot stuck in the roof of the casket. So
that should not have been, but this area is really not one that is explored much in Jamaica, not one that's talked about much. So there's not much awareness of it, and not many people are aware of the rights that they have and that they can actually take action against things like that.
Okay.
Thank you, Doc. It probably would have made sense to continue with the funeral from the point of view that, it just seems to interrupt the process, and then probably action could be taken afterwards. I don't know if that would have been an option. But,
it could have been an option. It could have been.
Okay, is there another hand up?
Yes,
Oh, okay. Let me let IPLG go first.
Go right ahead.
All right. Thank you for your presentation, BP Zurie.
You're welcome.
All right. I've always said to my family that I want to be cremated. And if for reason I'm interred instead, is that a breach of my rights?
Well, the truth is based on the rights that are there and how it's stated, unless it is that you're going to say that you were not treated in a dignified way, then but that one is you're going to have a little difficulty meeting the threshold. You might have some difficulty meeting the threshold for that one.
That will be my executor, right?
Yes.
Or the administrator.
But
the executor, well, executor, if because you said you have a will, it would be an executor.
It certainly could be him.
And that could be the person who decided to bury you instead of.
All right, sir. Thank you.
Tricky.
Yeah, that's a little tricky. Because that's an interesting one. But is it that there's one? Is it that you well, let's not go into that. Let's not go into that.
No, it's okay. If I put in writing, no, I haven't.
No. What I meant was that persons who say they prefer to be cremated are trying to simplify the process. I think. Maybe it's
that's
I
part
don't know.
of it. That's part of it.
Right. It's also, I think, less expensive. You don't have a casket, So I have a feeling that
No, they have caskets, man. You have
man,
caskets.
but it wouldn't be the same size. It must be less, because it must be a lot cheaper.
What what they do sometimes, they have the body at the church, and after that, it's cremated.
Oh, well, yes, but then you don't use the casket, so they can reuse that. They can fix it up and set and use it again. That's when you have the body at the funeral, and then subsequently you are cremated. That I'm not talking about that particular situation, because there wouldn't be, that's different. What I'm saying is that if you are going to be buried in a casket compared to being cremated, I think it is much more expensive to be buried in a casket. I've investigated that, but I would think so. Anyway, any other hands up?
Well,
Yes,
I see a question in the chat, DP Stu, that
Okay,
who
I have the
issues
chat open. Who issues the letter of administration?
the letter of administration? So yeah, so that's through the Supreme Court.
What
So if
about
they
the
do-
probate?
What is
What
this
about the
letter of
letter of
administration?
probate?
So all right, so so probate is if it is that there is a will. So if the person dies leaving a will, then you get a grant of probate. If the person dies intestate, meaning that they die without leaving a will, then you get letters of administration.
Okay, thank you.
So in the case where it would be up to the executor, right? But then there is no will. Who is gonna plead? Who is gonna take up that case, if anybody?
So if there is no will, there is no executor.
Right.
So, but what we have according to that act, the Interstate Act, there's a what's called a list of distribution, and it kind of lists your relatives and who is first
ranking them.
priority. So it's the spouse, and then the children, and then it goes down.
So I was just trying to establish who would bring the case. So
So
it might be the spouse then.
So but if the spouse will be first.
Yes. Okay.
To get the letters of administration. If there is no spouse, then the child.
And
Okay.
when does the Administrator General Department come in?
So if there is a child involved, then they come in. But your attorney can write to them and get permission to administer the estate.
Okay. Let's Earl, I think you have your hand up. I just realized
yes,
it.
I do.
Go ahead.
I was just thinking that we tend to be subjective in our thoughts. What happens in the case of judicial killings? And the person who has to bury the person who was killed, of course.
Deceased.
The deceased. They don't believe that certain things were followed. Can they bring a case too? Because I see some input probably why the, what do you call it, Justice, what is it, JFJ? They are fighting to make sure that when these judicial killings go on, there was good reason for it. So you see all these things would drag, and everything in the courts, nothing goes quickly. So
Before Zuri answers it, let me take something of what you just said, Earl. It could be whether the killing was a legal one, or could it be, or were you asking about whether or not they destroyed the body in the process, and therefore it's a question of the body? Which one were you really focusing on?
I wasn't hitting it as direct as that. I just mean the person is being killed. It was in some legal matter or whatever we call it.
Okay.
But they have relatives. And remember, you're always hearing, my boy never do anything, and they did this and did
innocent.
that. That's
innocent.
the point. Innocent. Even though many a time I'm told they know that they were doing wrong, but that's the reaction. So that's why I asked the question. I don't mind about that little part that you just asked, Stu.
So that would go back to the right to life point that we discussed earlier, where once it is that there is some utterance that right was violated, that there needs to be some kind of investigation to ensure that the right was not violated in that particular way. So that's why we have people like JFJ, and you have the public defender, people like the public defender, whose offices take on issues of that nature. That's why we have institutions like Indicom that would investigate police shootings. So there is that right kind of create that need for there to be that obligation, I should say, for there to be investigation into those things.
Good. This is why I asked the thing, and because you know CY, think of the Mario Dean case. Everybody will remember that.
Yeah.
And the things take so long, and you have to have somebody persistent following it. So it's a worrisome case, and plenty of people give up. I just thought I'd get that. Thank you.
I think we have to get closer to, we have to wrap now. And I don't see any hand up. So
may I ask a question, please?
Okay, go right ahead.
Yes, thank you. It's a very interesting presentation, but I just want to ask whether or not the judiciary is exploring just under another aspect of the rights of the dead or the trauma that can be caused to families. Is the judiciary looking at having criminal investigations, for instance, in cases where someone may be aware of a person who is sharing pictures of someone on a scene, someone who might have been killed in an accident or has been shot, and things like that? I'd like to know if the judiciary is considering that, because that can be very traumatic. And sometimes just the conditions of what you see, it's really, really deplorable. So is the judiciary considering that? Presenter.
Good question. Good question.
I think it's already been considered, but whether or not there's formal legislation that is directly stated in that way, I'm honestly not certain. No, but it's something that it should not be shared in a particular way, and actions can be brought against you for sharing.
Okay, thank you.
So it is encouraged that you do not share.
Let me just, since we're closing now, that point about living will, couldn't you accomplish the same effect by going through what's the word?
A power of attorney?
Yes, that's what I was thinking of.
No, not in Jamaica at the moment. That is not one of the powers that you can put in your power of attorney.
Okay. Thank you very much, Zurie. I mean, very interesting, something we've never really spoken about before. And at this point, I'd like to call on DP Rupert to do the official thank you.
Good evening, everyone. I must congratulate Council on taking us back to school, giving us a real comprehensive lesson on some things that most of us, as has been said, we don't pay any attention to. And good to have you, sir. The Lord has blessed you with a wonderful gift below your nose, sir, that you use to explain things. Thanks. This evening has been informative. You have not only taken us back to university, but to Norman Manley, to the courts. You have led us all over the world to show us exactly, and to give us an idea of how things have been. And you have reminded us that even the dead have rights. Their forebears have rights. And thank you for opening our eyes. Thank you for opening our minds on behalf of your own club, the Kiwanis Club of Kingston, and on behalf of all the members who are online from the various clubs. Just want to tell you, sir, thanks. By the way, one little advice, this is an area that you probably can become an expert on and share your ideas with not only Jamaicans, but other people in the Caribbean, and hopefully probably make some money from too. And when you get there, remember who gave you the idea, sir. You'll be getting your certificate.
Yeah, let me just come in there. Sorry, let me just come in there about the certificate. I was having some problems with my publisher, which is the app that I use. So I won't be able to display it this evening, but as soon as that is sorted out, Zurie, you will get your certificate. Thank you again. Thank you, DP.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Okay.
Tell him all the things.
Certificate of appreciation, you know.
I know, I'm just joking.
Okay, I think at this time we should ask for an extension of time. It's just 10, probably let's say 10 minutes. We shouldn't need more than 10 minutes to wrap. Can I have somebody? Okay, DP Earl has moved. Somebody to second.
I second.
Okay, thank you. And it's at this point we'd like to go to our Sergeant at Arms, and you know, some people might remember Zurie has usually done that role, but we couldn't ask him to do it this evening after we asked him to be the guest speaker. So DP Chris is going to take on that role. DP Chris, are you ready?
Thank you very much, DP Stu, and good evening, everyone. I've been asked to take on the role of the Sergeant at Arms. I'm a large person, and you know they are big. You know, to be the Sarge after the VP Zurie is a large shoe to fill, but I will try, and I really haven't been able to get any information about the wrongdoings of my club members. But certainly I wanted to have charged past District Trustee Ralston and Kiwani and Garthright today, being their birthday. I think they ought to have been here with us. Instead, they probably are elsewhere. They probably are elsewhere celebrating their birthday and not wishing to be in the company of their fellow Kiwanians. So in their absence, they are still charged for their negligence in not being here tonight. But I should also charge VP Zurie because he has now, having abandoned the role of Sarge and making it fall on me, even just for tonight. That itself is, you know, is terrible. Right? You perhaps ought to have said, I can still be the Sarge, but you didn't. You know, you were happy to just be the guest speaker and think, well, guest speaker always have free night. He can sit back and but you are a member of this club. You were happy to second a minute ago the motion for an extension of the meeting. So you so Zurie, VP Zurie, I'm sorry, I have to still charge you, sir. For that. Now, as I said, I wasn't able to get enough details on the misgivings of our members over the past few days. Right? So I really don't have anything, you know, and Zurie never passed on anything to me. He just left me in the cold. Right? So I now have to just try and do something else in order to see if I can get some money out of our members. So my first question is to them is, what happens at midnight tonight in Trinidad?
Carnival ends.
Carnival ends.
Okay. So was that Stuart who answered? DP Stuart?
Yeah, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I mean, everybody else who didn't answer, you need to pay a fine. Okay. So, what is the significance of tomorrow?
Ash Wednesday, first day of Lent. It's only a holiday in the Caribbean, though. It's not a holiday in England. I just mentioning that as an aside.
No, America.
Ash Wednesday. Yeah.
Okay.
I
Right.
hope about that.
You know, and anybody can tell me the significance of the ash? Of what it's called Ash Wednesday?
I only know that they used to burn the crosses that they made on Palm Sunday and have them on Ash Wednesday. I don't. That's all I know. Something like that. I might be wrong.
You're halfway there, but you know, I will accept that. Right? So Earl is the only person who seems to have any knowledge about Ash Wednesday. So everybody else is fine. All right. Well, like I said, I don't have any fines for specific people, but I just asked 2 other questions. The first question is, in which battle did Napoleon die?
The last battle, his last battle.
Oh, that is correct answer. And the other question that I will ask is, what can you never eat for breakfast? What can you never eat for breakfast?
Lunch and dinner.
And because Desmond answered it, and Desmond is the one who had provided that, Desmond has to pay a fine.
You catch him. You catch him.
All right. That's it for tonight.
Good one.
Juice, I turn it back to you.
But you didn't quantify the fine, though.
Oh man, everybody pays a fine of $250.
Okay. Thank you very much, DP Chris.
Fine.
Well done. And at this point, we're gonna ask DLG Willie any notes, any announcements that he may have. DLG Willie.
Thank you, DP Stewart. So far, announcements, notices, announcements. Just a reminder again, fellow Kiwanians, those who still are interested in going to District Convention in Niagara Falls, that's from May 29 to 31. Early registration is now closed. Registration is now $360 Canadian. That's from May 29 to May 31. Reminder, International Convention being held in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania from June 25th to 28th. There will be a number of educational workshops, master classes, and a keynote speaker. At convention this year is Henry Winkler. As we all know, he's
the funds.
And so far as closer to home, Thursday night, we have a fundraising meeting at my house. And next week, Thursday, will be a nominations committee meeting being hosted by DLGE Stan Dunwell. That is to cover to go through the nominations for our annual general meeting. And just a reminder, the induction of our 2 new members will be held on March 18th, I believe. I may confirm that with DP Stewart. And then our anniversary meeting, or our anniversary will be celebrated at a meeting on March 25th. And lastly, remember to save the date for our 3K Fun Run Walk. That is Sunday, July 13th at the Oak Gardens. Those funds have been raised to be autoclave equipment for Bustamante Children's Hospital. And so for interclubbing opportunities, we'll be circulating the schedule tomorrow for those of our upcoming interclubs. At this time, DP Stewart, that is all the notes and announcements on interclubs. You may want to ask if there are any visiting clubs that may have announcements at this time. Cheers.
Sure. Thank you, DLG. Any announcements from the floor, from our other clubs or visiting clubs? This is your time.
Excuse me, no announcement at this time. Just a question. DLG Willie, is there an early bird special for international convention? And what is the price of international?
I'm not sure. your DC, what I could do is I'll check that out for you. I'll WhatsApp it to you. I'll get information from relevant people, Audrey Brown, and get WhatsApp. Okay?
Yes, thanks. The price and if there's an early bird. All right, thanks.
Sure, will do.
Okay, any floor still open for announcements from any other club?
This is just an announcement from a club, DP Stu, but the Division 23 Central, we would like to increase our pool of club coaches. And so I'm inviting anyone who has the urge and would like to become a club coach to give me a call and we can arrange the necessary training and so for them. So anyone who may be on the link here tonight, and think that they have something to offer as a club coach, kindly get in touch with me. Thanks.
Okay, DP Chris. Yes, that sounds like a good thing for some of our more learned Kiwanis. And I guess you have well, I guess you will sort it out at that stage. But I think the most important thing is you have an interest to pass on information and to be able to teach. So keep that in mind and get in touch with DLG. If anybody doesn't know his number, he doesn't necessarily have to give it now, but you can, there are so many members in the club. Through any of us, we can get to him. So that will be a very easy task. Okay, there are no more. I think it's time for the thought for the week. DP Marcel, you have one for us this
ready
week?
to roll. Yes, my friend. Good night, everyone. Thanks, VP Zurie, for bringing light and life to the dead. That was so good. And in light of that living life that you're bringing, the thought for the week is this: keep your face always towards the sunshine, and shadows will fall behind you. I think you can do that whether you're dead or alive. But in any event, do it while you're alive. Have a good week, everybody.
Okay, DP Master, I don't know how you could do it when you're dead if you're in a horizontal position, in terms of casting a shadow. But that's a debate for another time. Fellow Kiwanis and guests, it has been our pleasure to have had this evening with you, to be able to share this evening with you. And in closing, I think it's time for me I don't have a gong, but Willie, you want to remind me how we phrase this part of it in terms of our traditional saying, even though I've heard it so many times?
Toast to Kiwanis International and a friendly Jamaica. Jamaica land we love.
Okay,
raise your glasses and have a toast.
You heard it.
Yeah, invite us to raise our real or imaginary
Raise your glass.
glasses.
Yes, you raise your imaginary glass. Or it doesn't have to be imaginary. Some of
Real,
us are at
real or
home and we have a real glass. Okay. So thank you for, Willie said it, I don't need to repeat it. And this meeting of the Kiwanis Club of Kingston on March 4th, 2025 is now terminated. Thank you.
Thank you.
At 8:55.
Thanks.
At 8:55, okay. I think I can play some music this evening, but let me just stop the
informative presentation, Zurie. I learned a few things.
Yes.
And I liked his style of presentation.
Thank you.
Yes, very good.
It made it easy to follow him and to listen to him. So
no wonder you got first class honors in your first degree. But,
yes.
But you just did what you had to do when you're doing the second one.
And in the second degree?
You're valedictorian for the first degree?
Yeah.
Yes, the first degree.
First class honors and class valedictorian.
Yes.
Yeah.
You said there's more to it than
Carrie Mack will be proud of you, sir. You show that, you're demonstrating that you did learn something up there.
I was just asking VP